Welcome to the Indie Author Spotlight, where we interview indie authors about upcoming releases as well as life as an author, presented to you by Books Brews and Dogs. You can visit booksbrewsanddogs.com, purchase a blind date with a book, and support animal rescue efforts. Books Brews and Dogs is where you can buy a book and save a dog or a cat.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Indie Author Spotlight. We're here with Grace Fife, and we're going to be learning all about her books and the upcoming projects, and I'm super excited. So let's dig in. Hi, Grace. How are you today?
I'm good. Excited to be here.
Yay, me too. I'm very excited about this. So I finished your book probably 2 days ago, Grudges and Revenge. And it is available on KU as well as Amazon and Barnes and Noble, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what a book. It was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. It was hard to put down some points. At other points, it was like, whew, I need to set this down and consider what just happened, because it does deal with quite a few darker topics and subjects. What do you have going on over here? You never talk. Sorry, that's the husky. He never says anything. He's yelling at me right now.
He wants to be part of it. It's okay.
I wish I could angle this down a little bit better so you could actually.
Oh, the baby.
That's him. He's usually the quiet one, believe it or not. It's the pity that's over and talking and.
Mm-hmm.
But so books.
Yes.
So there's quite a few darker topics that happen in the book, and it also deals with the aspect of BDSM within it. And so you have a lot of consent is such a huge thing that has to happen within the book, and you do a really good job of bringing that out, especially with characters that are all morally gray.
Yes.
And just kind of showing that, morally gray doesn't necessarily mean without consent, and that just because you could be involved in these other activities doesn't, like, this still has to be there. And I just thought that was really, I don't know the exact words for that, but amazing that you had included that in this environment. And made it as if it was just a natural part of the environment as well.
Thank you. I tried.
Well, you did. You succeeded. So congratulations. What was your inspiration for this book? Oh, well, Grudges and Revenge is the name of the book, by the way, guys. I don't think I said it. So Grudges and Revenge, what was the inspiration behind this story?
I wrote this book for me because I ran into a bit of a slump where I was reading a bunch of the dark romance stuff, a couple just chill contemporary romances, and I found myself getting a little annoyed at certain tropes, and I wanted more. I wanted something that connected with what I wanted to read. So I wrote one. And
it's a good way to do it.
Like you said, it was bothering me because I like the dark romance genre, obviously, but there's such a prevalence of BDSM without consent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bit of a trope in itself. But I didn't want that. I wanted a, ironically, somewhat positive representation of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of it being this consensual thing and a safe practice, even though there are darker themes to it.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have that. So, in a way, that was a lot of the inspiration for me, along with a radical opposition to the miscommunication trope. I dislike it very much personally. Therefore, I can I use the radical honesty approach where it's like, no, nobody lies. Nobody gets to say anything that isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's uncomfortable, we say what's on our mind. I
Yeah.
We're not going to play the games of, oh, but what is he really thinking? No, you know. For better and for worse, you know what these characters are thinking.
Which in reality is how a healthy relationship works, right? So
Yeah.
if we make sure that the person understands that we're saying what we mean and we're meaning what we say, that, you know, even if emotions get a little high, we have to step back and acknowledge like we screwed up by letting our emotions win a little bit. And this is what we're going to do to help rectify that or how we make up for it. And you have that happen in the book, where, and I'm horrible with names. I'm going to probably say this every time. Um, but the female and then the more dominant, the
Yes. Emma and Damien.
and Damien. Okay. Um, they get to a point where she starts feeling more comfortable. She states something and he loses it. And, you know, his way of repenting is to give her the option to harm him, to physically harm him because he like lost it and physically went after her. And so the response was,
Yeah.
now you have the ability to do this without, because I shouldn't have reacted that way. And so that's a big thing within the BDSM community, which is something that I studied in my psychology classes, and I had some friends that were involved in that community. And so I've had a lot of questions and a lot of things answered within the BDSM community. And it's very interesting because you did a really good job. Like whatever research you did to bring that out really shows. Because it is, you do have the dom, but it's the submissive person that really in the end has all of the power with that one word, as long as everybody in there is being respectful of that situation. And so there's a book, and I've talked about this book a lot. I'll probably bring it up in every single interview just because I love the book so much. But it deals very much with BDSM. The main character can't, almost can't, it's not that she can't, but more often than not, she needs pain in order to also receive pleasure. And that was by the design of her gods within the book. And this is Kushiel's legacy, that I'm talking about. And there's a line in that book that says that which yields is not always weak. And that is like the theme song or the theme line or motto of BDSM, right? Is the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
submissive is not weak at all in any way and tends to actually hold more power than the one who is playing the dominant. And
Yeah.
I think you show that really well in the book.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun to explore. In college, I got a bachelor's in social science, which just like umbrellaed a bunch of different things. But one of my favorite classes that I ended up taking was titled Deviant Behavior. And it goes into a lot of like that strange, less normalized behaviors that some people fall into. And it was very all-encompassing. And it was interesting to learn about the psychological reasons why some people go into certain things. And I did have a lot of fun with this book in playing with the characters, because it also deals a lot with PTSD with all of them
Yeah.
in their own specific ways. And I think you see it a lot in Elijah, especially, where little things come out and you can see him sometimes handling it poorly, but getting redirected in a way that's like, oh, wait a minute. This is the acceptable behavior, and this is why that wasn't right. Okay. I get it. But it was definitely a lot of fun to explore.
Yeah. And I really like that trope of everything out on the table, where you went so far away from the miscommunication, where everything, because there's that point where Elijah is helping Emma, right? After she's taken by them, because she's essentially kidnapped by them. And it's not so much that they really wanted to kidnap her, they just didn't know what else to do with her.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate circumstance. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess she's here.
Can't let her go, but we don't really want to keep her, and we don't really want to kill her. So, like, what do we do? And so she, of course, doesn't know that they're like, what do we do with this woman? So she's freaking out, expecting them to rape her or do any of these number of horrible things to her that they don't even have in mind. So she, of course, is fighting, and she injures herself. And so when he's like trying to convince her to calm down, he's like, would you even just look at me? Do I look like I want you? Right. And
yeah,
it goes back later when he admits his attraction to her. It goes back later, and she's like, well, what about your we don't lie rule? And he was like, did I lie? And he replays that conversation for her, where it shows all he did was state truths that allowed her to infer her own opinion.
Yeah, which, technically speaking, is against the rules.
Yes.
And Damien does reel that in occasionally. And he's like, buddy, try a little bit harder. Hang on. I know that this is your defense mechanism, but that's not acceptable. That's not what we're doing. Omission of the truth is also a lie. And I think Damien and Matthew especially are much better at practicing that. But when you get a little bit into Elijah's backstory, you can kind of see why that happens. Mm-hmm. His entire life and survival has been based off lying to people. Yeah. So breaking that would naturally be a difficult thing to do. But he's trying.
Once something is ingrained, and with his background, like, that was forced onto him, was to be the liar and play those games, and from a very young age with his mom, because there's even a point where one of the other criminals that stops him is like, your mom is the worst of us, about Elijah's mom. And so it really does make sense. Like, it was the only way he knew how to survive. And it is really hard to get out of a mentality like that. It's to be able to switch the way you were taught to be and feel safe when you were always, the majority of your life, you weren't safe. The truth. And now you're safest when you tell the truth, but you only have 3, 4, 5 years of that, as opposed to 18, 20 something years of having to lie to keep yourself safe. And so I think Elijah is probably one of my favorite characters. And I about had a heart attack at the end because you did a great job of hiding that. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm going to kill her.
I got a lot of that. It felt like the right thing to do.
Mm.
But the very end also felt the most fitting. I don't really know how to state it without giving it away, but
I
it
don't
felt
either.
right.
But I agree because, in reading it as well, like you try to go back and it wouldn't have worked had it been Matthew or Damien.
Yeah.
It would not, there wasn't any other character you could have done that and played that game with.
Yeah.
And so it really worked out in the end, but it was like this heart-wrenching, like, after all of that, like, really?
Excuse me?
And then you do get that happy ending, but it's still like that, like, what just happened? And I just it was a really good twist I wasn't expecting. So bravo. You throw it in there. But another thing that I really liked that you did, and this is going back to the beginning of the book with Emma, is you had her walk through and play with her confusing and conflicting emotions and kind of walked us through her thought process during those times of when she was starting to gain uh, feelings for these boys that have been holding on to her. And she's like, what is this Stockholm syndrome shit going on in my head? And so that you make her fully aware of this dynamic and that this isn't normal and this isn't okay and what happens. And but watching that inner dialogue with her to for herself to try to figure out if this is really how she feels or if it's a Stockholm syndrome type thing that's happening, and trying to play around with that while the guys are also, in the background, because this is her point of view, but you can kind of tell in the background from her observation that they have the same thought going on in their head. And I think Damien actually kind of brings it up at one point, if I'm remembering it.
So that was Matthew, and that was one of my favorite scenes to write, because when you talk about inspiration, again, it was kind of an anti-story to what I'd been reading, where this dark romance storyline is very romanticized, and it's like, oh no, it's fine. It's not. It's completely unacceptable. And there's a moment where Emma breaks a little bit while she's hanging out with Matthew and says, you guys are nice, and I'm developing these feelings. And Matthew's the one that calls her out and says specifically, no, this is not nice. This is Stockholm syndrome. We're giving you basic things and showing you basic kindness. That is not nice. And I had a lot of fun writing it out and literally spelling it out there of this behavior is not acceptable. However, for this story, here's the reason why it should work psychologically. Which was a lot of fun to play with because I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I tried to put some realistic psychological aspects into it where it's okay, but why would someone feel that this is acceptable? No, it's actually not. And there's an internal battle with a lot of them where they're like, I know that this isn't okay. So how can I do my best to make this an acceptable moment?
Right.
And I really liked that moment with her and Matthew because it really showed it off of this is what it is. It's the healthiest unhealthy relationship you're probably going to read about.
For as unhealthy as the situation in and of itself was, I have definitely been in less healthy relationships.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and you know, it really shows it, and it talks about like, because in remembering that scene with Matthew where he called her out on that, and she kind of goes back and reflects, and she's like, nobody ever cared that I was taken care of or not before, as long as they were okay. And it reflects on her previous relationships and the relationship she had with her parents, and how that went down, which is then all those abuses led up to how someone can feel like an abusive relationship can feel better, and it can feel nice because it's better than what you've experienced. And like realizing that for some people something like that can become a better situation than what they were in. It's scary.
And
But it's
it's based on a
reality.
lot of truth. That's often how it goes, is when your life has been in a certain bubble and you find one that is better, just because it's better doesn't mean that it's good. And again, that's something that I really liked playing with in this story, because a lot of dark romance goes into, oh, well, I'll accept it or write off excuses as to why this happened. I didn't want to, ironically, I didn't want to romanticize that idea of unhealthy is okay. It's not. And I hope that by the end, it ended up turning into something that was some semblance of a healthy relationship between them.
I did feel that way. I felt like everybody was trying, you know, even if it may not have been the healthiest or an okay one. Again, we're dealing with people that had severe PTSD trauma, grew up in lives of crime, you know, that were severely abused by their parents. Like all of them had abusive parents. All of them had, you know,
Trauma.
traumas that happened with them, and trying to deal with it. And so you have the three men that found solace in each other, and were able to kind of come. And I wouldn't even say that initially their relationship started off healthy, because their relationship started off of, at least Matthew and Damien started off with a trauma bond.
Yep.
Being together at a young age and in that same environment, and knowing each other. And so they trauma bonded at a young age. And then you enter Elijah, where Damien recognizes somebody himself a little bit in Elijah, and recognizes that, and says, hey, maybe you can come with us because we're kind of doing a little bit better.
We're messed up like you, but we're doing okay. We're trying.
And it even talks a little bit about why one of the reasons that they didn't just kill Emma off is because Damien had that same kind of initial feeling with her, understanding, because she is, I mean, they wound up with her because her boyfriend was like, I don't want her. I'll help you if you get rid of her for me. Like,
yeah.
right? And so, you know, clearly not in a good place, not in a good relationship, and they're like, just because he treated you like that doesn't mean that this is okay. And I think it helps a lot, because I've read a lot of genres all over the place, and I've read a lot of dark romance and stuff lately, trying to keep up with all the interviews I'm getting ready to do. And the what I like about yours is throughout the process, they acknowledge that they're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't know how to fix it. They're not going to therapy. They're through it like most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
But there is the acknowledgement of, I'm not a good person, and something is deeply wrong with me because of the trauma. And we can't have a relationship unless you can recognize that.
Yeah, it's a very strange dark romance, I think, for that reason. And it it goes kind of against the feeling, of a lot of the genre, which is part of why I struggled initially with, where does this belong? Because yeah, it's a dark romance, totally, but it dives so much into this isn't okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the thought processes behind it, that I feel like it's a little odd for what it is. Including being written in third person, which is already an
Mm-hmm.
oddball in the genre. But again, I wrote it for me. It's what I wanted to read. So that's what came out.
Well, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed watching the progression and seeing the psychology behind a lot of things. And you can see where your social science studies kind of came out in the book, and the interactions and how things like that would have gone as far as bonding, because trauma bonding is a real thing and it creates intense loyalty um, to people. And that can sometimes become devastating to you, that loyalty can become dangerous to yourself. And and that shows, and you see the progression of these things and how it affects everyone, because even with that intense loyalty, there were times that they weren't sure exactly what Damien was going to do, and they were worried, but they were going to let him do it because of the loyalty they had to him. And there so it wasn't that they just blindly trusted it things. It was that they were loyal enough that it is what it is, and we'll deal with it after. And it really is an interesting dynamic, and I do like that the things are addressed, and it's not just like, here's the bad guy, he's a bad guy, you fall in love with him and accept it. But it kind of goes back into that idea of BDSM, where there's these fantasies that play out, and the fantasy can play out, but there still has to be a control there still has to be something that stops it, before it goes too far, before things become uncomfortable to the point of needing to stop. And your book really kind of shows that, like, yes, this is dark, yes, this is the story of these people, but in a way it's almost like the play out of the fantasy, as opposed to real events that are happening, and we're being told that they're okay.
Mm-hmm. I I had a lot of fun in playing with the scene, without giving too much away. Where they're deciding whether or not to go and see Carter,
Mm-hmm.
because that moment was kind of tricky, where they didn't agree and they didn't like it. And it turned into a funky, messy little moment where Damien, who's just the boss, is heavily questioned and just, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And he has that dominant personality and doesn't like being questioned.
Yeah.
But it was, I tried to go for that yucky feeling, you know, of he needs to know better. And we all know that this isn't right. And he slips. He goes from being the rather proper Dom to simply controlling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, all right, we all don't like this, right? And it creates a little tiff. But they work it out with words and then, you know, with more.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely a lot of the more.
There's a lot of the more. But they don't completely blindly follow them, even though they agreed that this is what they're going to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I really did like doing that, was messing with the idea of nobody in this is perfect. They're far from perfect. And I hope it came across as creating these multi-dimensional characters where it's not simply, oh, it's my way or the highway. It's, this is too far. And this is the weird repercussion what happens when those rules are starting to break down.
Yeah. Well, you also have in there that helps create the dimensions and the characters and lets you know, like, even as much as they know about each other, even they don't know everything about each other, because you have the moment where Matthew is with Emma on their own and he takes a very Dom role. And later in the book, she kind of haphazardly mentions it to Elijah when they have like their first night, and Elijah goes, huh?
Excuse me?
You know, and they don't end up getting into details. She doesn't really tell him a lot about what happened. But Elijah was very
like kind of offended. Like, excuse
yeah,
me. I'm pretty sure I know him better than you. No.
you know, and just had no idea. And it was just this thing that, you know, Matthew just never had the opportunity or desire to bring up before. And so, like, learning that he could kind of be a switch was like, wait, what? That, huh? So, you know, and it just shows, like, you know, there were things that they didn't all know. And like when he invites her into when Elijah invites Emma into the bathroom for his bath ritual and everyone else is like offended, like, what? You know, and you learn, like, well, they wouldn't ever just let me relax. Like, this isn't, you know, and so it becomes like you learn that, you know, while they're together and they have this extremely intimate connection, there's still that need for separation between each character. You know, they each have their own rooms. Then they have one room that is theirs together. And so you can be invited to the individual room, or you can be invited to the everybody's space room. And it really plays with the BDSM rules. It plays with the polyamorous rules, which are very different than BDSM rules. You know, just because you're into one doesn't mean you're into the other, and everything.
Yeah.
Just having both aspects and dynamics within the book and exploring both of that, and it's really it was really fun to watch that play out. I have friends in both worlds, and so seeing this play out and being able to ask questions and see, and that research is done really well, however you did that research, whether through your own questions or own experiences or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. It's really well done, and I think it helps explore that world in a healthy way, as opposed to other books that have attempted without really knowing the rules behind things and just getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And that can be very dangerous.
And I didn't want to have the competition that you see so often in Why Choose. Like, there's a little bit of it, but every time there's that competition-y type feel, it's always playful. It's not serious. No one has an absurd amount of jealousy because they're a family unit.
Yeah.
They are all together and they're all loving each other. And it's okay if one or two happens to be chosen over another, because in the end of the day, they're together. They're a family. And I guess on that line, speaking of family, I ended up writing one of my favorite side characters of all time, which is Sebastian, the father figure. I love him. He makes me so happy.
He's a great character, and I love when they're at Carter's party and he pulls her aside to dance with her, and she is freaking out, and he's just like protective dad mode the entire time. Like, it was really funny. It
Just
made
that awkward parent meeting thing where it's like, so what are your intentions? It's like, I don't know.
like, they kidnapped me. What do you mean? What are my intentions? Like, I'm not really even sure what's happening. I'm still figuring it out.
It's just, he makes me so happy. And to find out like his progression and his personality through it, it was really fun for me to have that father role for them and eventually for her as well. And just, no, these are my babies. I'm going to protect them.
Yeah, he is a great character, especially because of how he starts out, and then it's like halfway through you see a completely different side of him for the first time, and you're like, that is not what I got from like the first 20 pages in when we first meet him.
Yep.
He's a very different feel to him when you first meet him to what you're introduced to later. And so that is a lot of fun. So why don't we go ahead and talk about so Grudges and Revenge is your main book, but you have a short story in the Dark Fairytales.
Yes, I do. I went on the ultimate side quest and started doing a bunch of anthology work with a fantastic group.
Mm-hmm.
Sweetest indie authors on the planet. Everyone is massively supportive of each other, and I love it. But yeah, I ended up doing Scorpion Grass for that one, and it was a lot of fun. I hadn't written a fantasy in a very long time, so it was a bit of a challenge, and it's also my biggest challenge in the world to wrangle word count.
Mm-hmm.
I think Grudges and Revenge shows that. um, I love describing all of it, the nitty gritty. Like, I'm no Tolkien describing trees for 3 pages, but I get there sometimes and I'm like, nope, nope, let's wrangle it back. And you can't do that for short stories.
Yeah.
It's much more concise. And I struggled a lot with that, but I did have a lot of fun with Scorpion Grass. And
Yeah. I liked that it was a grasshopper shifter. It's, right? Because shifters always, they're wolves, are, bigger animals, wolves and bears, and almost always wolves or some sort of dog. And so, like, seeing a shifter
this
character
little
goes into the full insects, right? And I was like, this is awesome. This is so fun.
glad you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. Um, I liked playing with the traditional like rule of threes in everything. There's like 3 main sections of it. There's 3 rules to breaking the curse, and it's the traditional aspect of it I thought was a lot of fun. And I also challenged myself with that story to not use any proper names. I went with the very grim fairy tale style of Little Red Riding Hood.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have a name. The big bad wolf is just that. So it was a heck of a challenge to do because you run into the issue of being repetitive with your
Mm-hmm.
words, but it was so much fun to just she's nameless and yet
So
incredibly important.
I didn't even realize that while I was reading. I was so intrigued with the grasshopper aspect. I think that, like, I really didn't notice that you didn't give anyone a name, but thinking with you stating that, thinking about it, I'm like, then again, I'm so horrible with names. I probably just thought I forgot it.
So I'm the same way. And in every story I ever write, names are the bane of my existence. Some people are just like, I have a name and now I'm going to write a story for this character. I'll write a story and halfway through it be like, oh, I think I got a name and go through and try to like work in this name because I'm so bad with it. But it it was a lot of fun and I liked playing with the kind of classic literature aspect of it where I I love the classics. Like the Yellow Wallpaper is my favorite of all time in existence. Um, but I wanted to play with a lot of those the little things that you can get away with in short stories, like a lack of name and moving the story extremely quickly, having the moral of the story, and leaving odd little breadcrumbs that I knew were just for me, really. But I loved it. Uh, if you ever uh, feel like going back and reading it, I do imagine you would catch a lot of things that weren't
Mm-hmm.
a
I'm thinking
thing
I might
the
have
first time.
after this conversation to see what else I can find in there, because I I really was like transfixed with the fact he was a grasshopper. It is the main thing that I remember, that other than he basically saves her from her
Yeah.
husband and herself, and you know um but it's it's really just, I was so intrigued by the grasshopper. And I love how, like, he almost gets crushed, and then he's like on the guy's shoulder and he's looking at him, and the guy like flicks him away, and then he's like, "Oh, well, you were probably going to get away with this because I was just observing you, but now that you did that, like, screw you.
It's over. Yeah.
I'm done now. Like, now I have even more interest in her than I did before. So now you're just in trouble. It really, and it really felt that way. Like, up until that point, it felt like he was just going to observe this human interaction and how it went down. And then when the guy flicks him off the shoulder, he's all of a sudden he's like, excuse me? Who do you think you are? Like,
oh, you picked the wrong one.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun. If you again, try not to give much away, but if you go back and see him like kind of using his powers for the first time, he has a very specific style of magic or so that he uses with the forest.
Okay.
There is something out of place where hi,
My husband Ray, he just got home from work. That's why the dogs get all excited.
oh, I love it. There's a magic that is out of place there, and there are little flowers that end up growing at her feet, and it is not his typical wheelhouse. And I just there's little things like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and reread it because I'm well, I'm curious now to see if I notice it, you know, when I'm told to look for it and see if I can notice it and realize it. So
I
what was
hoped to write something with a little rereadability, and for me anyway, I kind of felt like I accomplished it by doing those little things, like little sprinkles here and there of like, oh, oh no, this was actually what was going on this whole time, and it was there. You just
yeah,
you didn't know, so you didn't see it.
until you go back and have that opportunity now that you're more familiar with it. You know,
Now that you have the whole story.
those intricate stories, you know, where there's so much happening all at the same time that it's really hard to pick up on all of it until you go back and you're like, wait a second. And that's always fun, is to be able to go back and reread something and notice things you didn't notice before and catch on to things that happened and those small details that felt like they didn't matter that turn out to be a really big deal later on.
Yeah, just a little like, oh, oh no, that was always there. It wasn't simply some kind of twist in the middle. It always existed. And I like stories that do that. And I really wanted to add that little aspect. Again, just mostly for me, but I wanted that in there.
And then what about the musician and the inkwell? So that is one I haven't read. So can you tell us a little bit about that one?
That is a wish gone wrong type story. It's the volume 2 to Fairy Tales for the Unloved. And I had a lot of fun with that one too. It
It's like you just like writing or something.
I know. It's like I like this or something. It's crazy. That one I took a very hard, grim approach to. Where I guess it has a happy ending, but I mean, not.
Is that um is volume 2 out, or is it coming out, or
It is out. It was delayed a little bit, but it is out now.
okay?
It is a significantly darker volume to this. Um,
That's
I
that's interesting because this is it's a pretty dark book.
the second is highly taboo and it is very dark. I personally am still not sure if my story belongs in there because it may be dark, but it's not quite as dark as the
It'll
other
be a
ones.
little bit of a light read to get
A
people
little bit,
excited together.
it's not happy, but it's not exactly the same caliber of dark as a lot of the others. But it's definitely a villain origin type story. And again, it plays a lot with psychology, where there's the whole be careful what you wish for aspect, right? And uh someone gives you three wishes and they end up trash, right?
They always do.
I played with that a bit, but instead of the wish gone wrong, the main character leans into it very hard. And you can see this person that starts out as just average
Hmm.
into being morphed into no, 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 I deserve this. This is for me. And I'm going to go through this process regardless of the outcome. And it does get pretty dark. There's I don't know if kidnapping is the right word, but kind of. Um, it is. It was fun, and I ended up making a character in it about halfway, which I never do. I'm the type of person that has an entire story played out before I write it down. But for this one, I ended up finding a character about halfway through and realized I really like this person's addition. I added a prince to this, and it shows him in a certain light, and some stuff is revealed, and you find out, oh my gosh, the main character and this prince are extremely similar, and they end up being a really interesting match. And it was it was neat. It has a happy, unhappy ending, I guess, depending on the perspective. But it that one was a blast to do, and because I've been going on the side quest route, I have three more with the same group of people, mostly, and they'll be coming out in October. And one of them's a paranormal romance type short story. The other one's witchy, which involves the Wizard of Oz kind of in a twist and is highly feministic. That one was written in just pure feminist rage. And it's very evident. It's just, nope, we're sick of it. Down with the patriarchy, all of it, we're done. Um, that was a blast. And then the third one is going to be a beastie monster type related story. Uh,
And
which
are all of those going to be short stories?
they are, yeah. They're all part of an October anthology trilogy for like the Halloween kind of time frame. Um, the the beastie monster one has been giving me a lot of trouble though, because every time I start, I realize that the story is way too big for a short story. So I have scrapped two stories now in the process of trying to reach this short story. And as a result, there's a possibility that in the future, I'm just going to come out with 2 vampire stories that are related because they're already half written. um,
That's one way to do it.
but that happened. And then Grudges and Revenge was written specifically to be a one-off. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all wrapped up. The story's done. However, I was flattered enough to get some requests for a second. And I have the idea, and I am fully planning on doing a second book for this and a third
Oh.
because the second ended up being too big. But the second is about 2/3 of the way written.
Are you going to
However,
be doing a different perspective than Emma's, or is it like different? Is it the same characters, or is it like
it would be the same characters.
okay?
It's still their story. Um, the point of view is going to be a little bit different though, because for the second story, um, for a good portion of it, Emma is going to be separated from the boys.
Oh,
So you're going to have a little bit of back and forth between here's what's going on with her. Meanwhile, here's what's going on with these guys. And I like it a lot. It has some serious culty vibes. Um, it's about 2/3 of the way done. However, I'm not going to release it until I also have the third mostly written out
mm-hmm.
because there is nothing I hate worse in this world than a series that is unfinished. It's the worst thing. It breaks hearts. And I
Well, as a reader,
swear I'm
I
never gonna do
appreciate
it.
wanting to make sure that
I won't. I refuse.
because it is right now it's wrapped up beautifully. Nothing needs to continue. So if you are going to continue in it, and it has to be more than just the one, I
It's
appreciate that as a reader.
yeah, it's gonna be a completed work. We're not doing that. And it also isn't necessary to the first,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I chose to do. I want this to be separate enough so that if you wanted a one off, it's done. You can end it. It's done. It's okay. If you want more, here's a continuation of their story.
Nice.
And it gets pretty darn wild. Um we
Well,
see a lot more of Emma's past show up in it, and it gets dark.
yeah, her past ended up being a lot darker than I was expecting. Uh,
The second book very much revolves around that. And all of her past just coming out in a wild story. um lots of heartbreak, lots of what the heck is going to happen.
mhm.
And the third, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. um so the first is based in Vegas.
Uh-huh.
The second will be based in her hometown. The
Okay.
third would be the back to Vegas and just the onslaught of everything that happened before is the reason for this. This is the big finale and the big conclusion, and what will come of Emma, Damien, Matthew, and Elijah with all their combined experience. And this is how it ends.
Interesting. Well, that's exciting to hear that there will be more of them, because you do kind of fall in love with them and the idea and the concepts of them and how they work together. And their dynamic is definitely something that is intriguing. So as you're writing these, what was who was your favorite character, and has that changed?
It changes constantly. It depends on who I'm writing. I love them all. Like, on a weird, like, personal level that I think probably every author does. Like, you create this character and you fall in love with them. And each of them have their own specific qualities that you love and dislike about each of them.
Uh-huh.
But honestly, I think it goes back and forth a lot between Matthew and Elijah. I love those two.
Mm-hmm.
I love that Matthew is this freaking giant of a human being, but is a teddy bear deep down. And I love Elijah because he's just fun. He's a ridiculous human being.
Mm-hmm.
And
By choice too.
yes,
He wants to be ridiculous and be like that lighthearted. I
yeah, he's got that antagonistic streak, and
Yeah.
it's really fun to write. And I don't know, I kind of brings out the inner brat,
Mhm.
just like, who doesn't like that though? The little picking and little pranks and just what you can do.
Yeah. He's definitely like, he has kind of that playful lover, younger brother type vibe. Like you're not really sure if he's a playful lover or a younger brother, or like what's going on with him. Um, except for the fact that he wants to antagonize you a little bit because it's fun for him.
Yeah, yeah, he likes he likes to mess with people and just, oh, ooh, did I hit a nerve? Oh no.
Right. So what is one of your favorite books to read? What's something that is like a comfort, or was something that really inspired you, I'm not really sure, but what are some of the books that you love that
I'm a multi-genre reader.
Mhm.
Um, so it's kind of hard to pick a favorite because it depends on what I'm feeling. But I'm gonna say, as odd as it sounds, without a doubt, my favorite book of all time is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I
Physical?
picked that up, and it was the first book I ever read that made me literally laugh out loud to myself, room of no one, and I was rolling. I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever read. And it did inspire me, even though it's dark romance and whatnot, or fantasy or whatever have you. I wanted to be able to do that, to connect with the person so much that it gives them that real emotion. And for that book, it was humor. it cracks me up still to no end. And I quote it constantly at home. But it did something real to me. As ridiculous as the story is, it made me feel so strongly. And that is inspirational to me. And I'd love to be able to do that with people.
Well, with that story too, there's a lot of because it is comical, but there's a lot of commentary within that comedy. As
Yeah.
most comedy is. Most comedy is commentary on things happening in society, and is actually quite important in how we are able to progress, because it takes things we take so seriously, puts it in a new light, and allows us to re-examine it and go, is it really, like, are we really acting that way? Right. And that was the whole point and concept behind the king's jester, was he was the only one allowed to make fun of the king, because it made the king realize when he was being ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially the role comedy is supposed to play, is it is supposed to take these important aspects and be a commentary and make us see it for the ridiculousness that it is. And
Yeah.
so it that book does exactly that.
It does. Just the idea of the Earth being blown up to make way for an intergalactic highway because they didn't file their paperwork on time and the bureaucracy got the better of it. That's fantastic. That's hilarious. But also so real. It's just,
Yeah.
okay, well, what did we need to do to prevent that? Oh, well, you got to go through this avenue to go through this one to go to that person. So they call this one. It's obnoxious and it's hilarious, but it's also kind of real.
Right. Like, nothing is simple anymore. It's 1,500 steps to do anything. And like what, I read a story recently about a lady who was pregnant, and she was going into labor. She's on her way to the hospital and ends up having her baby in the car, because they don't ever make it to the hospital. So they try, first responders get there, the baby is already done. They go ahead, cut the umbilical cord for her, clean her up. She goes to the hospital and they won't give her the birth certificate. It took her like 4 weeks to get the birth certificate, because they're like, well, we didn't see
We
you
were
give birth
there.
to that baby. And so she's like, all the first responders are like, well, we cut the umbilical cord for her. And they're like, yeah, but you didn't actually deliver the baby, so we can't prove. And I'm like, a $4 billion film can't do that good of a job at creating this scene you seem to think happened. And giving birth and cutting the cord and having, I'm like,
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
difficulty on a $4 billion budget creating that scene, and you're telling her, this person who, like, where do you think she got a baby with an umbilical cord attached, made it look like it was, like, what? You're medical professional. But
Yep.
they didn't count as witnesses to her giving birth, because they didn't actually watch the baby come out of the canal, even though when they got there, the baby was still literally physically attached to the woman. And she had to go through 4 weeks of bureaucracy to get a birth certificate for her child. So the bureaucracy that happens before, when they're trying to blow up the world and all this, because of the paperwork, is literally like, it's there. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and the commentary on some of these things, and the way it can be applied in different aspects, because those two things are completely separate. But the ridiculousness of the bureaucracy chain that has to happen is the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, like, yeah, it is one of the best stories because of that. And I think it is timeless because the way that it played out, like, it doesn't matter what time you read it in. If you've ever had to deal with bureaucracy in at any point, or some of these other aspects of that book, like, you are going to see the ridiculousness of, like, what what are
Yep.
here?
And we've all been there. It's somehow relatable. The story is outlandish, and yet it's somehow a highly relatable story, and I love that.
Yeah, it really is. So what is your favorite quote? What do you think you quote the most from that book?
Mm, that's rough. Uh, if we're going for
A
just
hard question.
statistics, um, it's definitely the use of the number 42.
Mhm.
That it's everywhere. It's the answer to life, the world, everything.
Yeah,
It that pops up continuously in the household.
nice. And it's so interesting how many theories have and come up with over the years, and the writer
Mhm.
itself is like, I just pulled a number out, but people have found a way to make it this big ordeal.
But here's
This is how
why.
he did it, or this he during it
Yeah,
he was like, no, I just picked a number.
it seemed nice.
Like,
42.
it worked. It
Yeah,
sounded good.
yeah. And I love that. It's also what makes reading so much fun is you can have two people read the same thing and then walk away with a different interpretation of this, even though
Different.
it may not have felt like something that needed to be interpreted. And at, even in like Grudges and Revenge,
Mhm.
it's super small, but how people saw characters absolutely cracked me up. Because I've obviously got an idea in my head.
Right.
I wrote down a description, but hearing the people that they're like, oh, I envisioned this guy, some of it was downright comical. I don't know if you're a Marvel fan.
Mhm.
I think his name was Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy,
Mhm.
the really big guy that just says everything bluntly. I was told by one person that that's who they imagined for Matthew, but with hair. And it
I
sent me. I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And I was like,
kind of
that
see
is.
that though, with how big Matthew is described to be. I could kind of see that. I would not have gotten there without you saying that, but I could see where somebody could go
Yeah,
down.
I can see it, I guess. But it it absolutely cracked me up, but also kind of highlights that we can read the same thing and have a totally different idea of
Mhm.
what it was. And it's part of what makes reading beautiful.
It really is, and it's amazing how, you know, it shows the uniqueness of and the individuality of each of us, and how we all see the world so differently. Which is always like really fun about book clubs and things like that, is when you read the same books and you're talking about it and you get to have these lovely and lively discussions, because you all notice something slightly different, or this stood out because our backgrounds and our life experience, and just in general how our brain works, sees things so differently, and it allows us to really understand when we get in these book groups and we talk about the books, and see how other people saw it or interpreted it. It allows us to really come to the understanding that just because we didn't see that, it doesn't make us less. And because they didn't see what we saw, it doesn't make them less. It doesn't make them more because they saw something more than we did or got something out of it. But it really enriches the experience when you have somebody you can talk to about the things and what's happening in them. And it's so much fun. Like, I'm lucky enough to have a husband who's also a reader, and we read a lot of the same stuff. There's stuff that I read that he doesn't, and vice versa, but we do read a lot of the same stuff. We both love Wheel of Time. He's way more into it than I am. It is his childhood love, what started his reading path. And so he listens to it on a regular basis. And I have other books that he's never read and probably never will. But when we get to talk about those books, it's really fun because I get to see his perspective of it and how he sees different aspects. And I get to show him my perspective and my aspects, or why this stood out to me. Especially when, like, in Wheel of Time, there's a lot of points where it talks about feminine power and capability, because you have the female power and the male power, and how they're different. And it's Sadine, and I can't remember the name of the other one right now, but Sadine is the male aspect. But anyways, there's a lot of that kind of dynamic of that is in there. And so it brings that topic up of like how we were raised different and how we were taught to see the world differently. And so, like, getting into these groups and talking with the authors about your books and everything is so much fun, because you really get to learn more about how interpretation varies so much, and why having open, respectful conversations about things is so beneficial to just understanding and learning to appreciate the art form even more.
It's definitely fun to sit around with people that have a similar interest, and even a similar interest in genre, and read the same thing and look at someone and they say, did we read the same book? I didn't see that at all. What are you talking about? It's like, no, it was a social commentary on da 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 da. What? It's fun, and you can also see a little bit more, I think, of the human being that is the reader. Because this is, your perspective is everything.
Yeah.
That is the individual's universe, and this is how it operates. So when you see someone have a completely different interpretation, you get a glimpse as to how their individual universe operates in their mind. This is how they receive this information. And it makes the human race a really cool thing, because there's so much diversity in it.
I love that phrasing of their individual universe, because so I'm during the Renaissance Fair season here in Texas, I work at the fair. I've been doing it, I think 8 years or something like that.
Love it.
And I'm a tarot reader out at the Renaissance Fair, and I do readings outside of that as well, but that's where I do the majority of them, most of the time. And one of the things that people when they sit down with me a lot, they'll be like, well, someone's just saying I'm being selfish and acting like the world revolves around me. And I'm like, but it does. Because
your world does.
We are the center of our own universe. Everything that happens to us in this world happens around us, and can't happen to us if we're not there. So we are the center of it. And, other people have interactions, but it's really like every person truly is the center of their own universe, because nothing in that world can happen without their interaction with it. So
Mm-hmm.
it has to involve them. And so I really like that you used that individual universes, because it's really what we are, is we're our universe of ourself interacting it, and we have, you know, our own orbit that interacts with other people's orbits, and it's really interesting, you know, and our orbit affects their orbit and vice versa, but in the end it's still like my universe, your universe might affect mine a little bit, but it's still happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
You're
like whatever I'm doing that's affecting you is still happening to you. And so it really is interesting how we interact and with each other, but we are still so separate. And it's beautiful that we have the ability to acknowledge and see that and respect that.
mm-hmm.
So
Yes. I'll just say yes. Because I agree with all of it. We are our own perspectives, and that's what we've got.
mhm.
That's how we perceive the world. And that's also why we all have to keep reading so we can get more and we can understand more perspectives and see more and learn more. Because
Yeah,
when you don't, your universe is small.
it becomes very narrow-minded, and you
Mm-hmm.
start, you know, focusing in on all the small details and forgetting the bigger picture. And you know, the more that we read, the broader that picture gets, and the more understanding we have of our own plight as well as others, because we can, if we can see ourselves in a character, it helps us understand we're not alone, because somebody wrote that, which means somebody can see it, or somebody has experienced it, or you know, knows somebody else that has and has attempted to understand it. However they came across that, it means somebody else somewhere along the line had to have that experience and that similar. And so you know you're not alone, and that really allows you to feel more open and more safe about expressing your experiences and understanding, well, I'm not the only one who's been through this, you know, and that having that sense of support is extremely, extremely helpful, especially when you're going through difficult times. And it's really amazing to see people come together over books and the experiences that happen in those books. When a character experiences trauma, when a character has, you know, a disability, when a character has this big experience, and all these people have read it and they've come together and been like, we've been waiting to see this happen, we've been waiting to see, because we've felt so alone. And then now, because people are speaking about that book, now there's a whole community of people that they can reach out to, that and find support and help. And we can't do that if we don't read, if we don't share, if we don't express. And so it really is such a powerful thing to sit down and read a book internally, and then being able to share your thoughts on that book in a safe space adds an extra level of um, support and courage and all those other good things that help you feel more whole and less alone.
Gives that camaraderie kind of feeling.
That's the word. Like coming up with all these phrases and things
I
to
know
say
what it
because I
is.
can't
Just
think of one word.
I see them all going. I can find it. Hang on.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're getting up there in time. let's go ahead and call it for tonight, because we could talk about these all night. Your books and stories have such interesting ideas and concepts, and the psychology you use in them is very clearly there and so much fun to talk about.
Thank
So
you.
I'm gonna just have to cut it. Unfortunately. So, but if you could go through, tell us the names of the books that you have and where they can get them, and just kind of a real quick rundown of where that is, real quick.
Yeah, Grudges and Revenge is on KU and Amazon. It's available at Barnes and Noble, and Fairy Tales for the Unloved volumes 1 and 2 are also available on Amazon and KU. Um, Everything else is probably going to end up there too. It's just where it goes. Uh, Starting next year, I have not announced this yet, but uh, I recently got contracts signed and we're ready to go to start an audiobook version of Grudges and Revenge for next year.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, the beautifully talented Brandon Francis and Andy Eloise are going to be doing a duet for it. And they're so much fun. They're so sweet. They're really nice people. And I'm beyond excited to get that going in the future.
That is really, really exciting. Do you have a possible release date for that, or is that still in the works? And
It is going into production May next year. So when that finishes, it'll probably be late next year when it comes out. But
just in time for the holidays.
ta-da! Nothing says Christmas like a hot summer in Vegas.
So, but there's enough spice in there to make up for anything.
You got to get warm, right? You
Yeah,
got to warm up somehow.
right.
Yeah.
Who needs a blanket? You just need grudges
Yeah.
and revenge.
Just 3 cozy men and you're good, right? That's all you need for
I don't
Christmas.
see anything else we would need.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun talking with you. I can't wait until we can do it again. And I'm really excited about the projects you have coming out for Grudges and Revenge. And I look forward to it, your other books that are coming out and short stories. And I really do love how you add your experiences and from your studies into your books, and it really comes through, and that you can see that. And I'm really excited to have had the opportunity to meet you, to learn more about you and your work, and I look forward to more stuff.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I love, love the idea for your charity. It is
Thank
fantastic. I love the idea of helping out the doggos and cats.
Yes, we cannot
The
forget those.
and cats. The babies need some help, and I love that is the core mission. And yeah, thank you for taking the random chance on a little indie author. It's always appreciated.
Yeah.
And thanks for chatting with me because you are a lovely human being. I love chatting with you, and I can't wait till the next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for bringing up the charity, because promoting myself is one of the hardest things to do. And it is the reason we started Books, Brews and Dogs, and we are very community based. So the whole everything behind what we do, and in everything that we do, we have our community in mind. So we offer both new and used books, written wrapped up as Blind Date with a Book. You can see some of my inventory waiting to get input back here. And the used books we purchase from our library to help support the libraries. So we kind of we end up putting about $400 or $500 a month minimum back into our library system here in Austin every month, just from our business. And then we do the new books that we get, we purchase from buyers that buy them from the big box stores instead of letting them go to a landfill. And then with the boxes that we create, so every book comes with either tea or coffee. The tea is made by a local business owner.
Oh, I love that.
Provide the card with her tea in the book. So I do have to get more cards because I ran out. But and then the boxes that we create that people can buy, there's items that we always throw in there from other businesses with their business card, because we truly believe that by supporting our community, that's how we succeed, which is the other inspiration for doing the indie author. So when we have the funds, we buy books from some of the indie authors and we put those on our table and kind of promote that we have them. And it really helps because people are always like, I want to do that, but I'm afraid I have the book already. And I'm like, well, if I've got indie authors on the table, there's a good chance you're probably not going to have the book.
This isn't, Fourth Wing isn't coming for you. It's something else.
So we buy Fourth Wing or you know, those big books. We're not putting those big ones on the table. We do have some popular ones that are a little less, they're more well known, but they're a little less big, like the Belladonna and the Foxglove have been pretty well known, but they're not Fourth Wing or ACOTAR.
Yeah.
So
these are, yeah.
Not everybody's gonna have those ones. And then so we have you know, I've put When the Moon Hatched on the table, which is a bigger book. So we do have some of those bigger books, but we also try to keep it more along the lines of the indie authors, the more obscure. We make sure we have Black authors, Asian authors, that, you know, everybody's represented. So we make sure that it's all there, and because that is what matters, is community, and we give back to the rescues because they don't have a voice. You know, the animals don't have a voice, and they need as many people speaking up for them as they can when, you know, the shelters are so overcrowded that they have to turn them away, or they're euthanizing dogs to make room for more dogs, and people are turning their dogs over left and right because of whatever reason. Sadly, more often than not, it's not a good reason, and sometimes it is. You know, sometimes the owner passes away, or sometimes, you know, life just happens and they really can't keep the dog anymore, because they can't feed them.
Definitely moving is a big one, and it's heartbreaking.
It is.
They're your babies.
I know, and it's hard, and you know, it's just having to be understanding that some people really think they're doing the best thing that they can. But usually owner surrenders are usually the first animals euthanized, because they know the owner's not looking for them, and a dog off the street might have someone looking for them. And it's just an unfortunate reality of being in this world. And there's a lot of heartbreaking stories, but there's a lot of heartwarming stories as well. And so a big inspiration for getting into this is actually my Pity Murphy, who we rescued. He's down here passed out. You can't see him anymore. Right there.
Oh.
But we rescued him, and we just got to really know the people at the rescue at Saving South Texas, and just kind of went, started learning more. And then we attempted to foster at the time. I was working in 9 to 10 hours a day. My husband was working 9 hours a day, and we have 2 high prey drive dogs. And now we're adding in a third that needs a lot of attention, a lot of training, and our dogs kind of suffered with how much we were having to give. And we were like, I don't think that this is healthy. So what's another way we can support? And so that's how Books Brews Dogs got started. And it's just been continuously getting more. It's growing faster than I think I can handle on my own. I get a little caught up sometimes, but it's not growing fast enough that my husband can quit his job. So, so it's a thing. And, when we do make sure, even on months when we haven't made a profit, we've made sure that we're donating. So the rescue gets $50 a month from us, no matter what. Even if we haven't made a profit that month, they're getting at least a $50 donation.
I love that so much. On a small personal note, I haven't broadcast it really because it's much more for me. But at the start of all this, I told myself that at least 10% of whatever I make with any of my writing is going to go to some charity. Now, I bounce around with which ones because there's a lot.
There's so many, and there's so many good causes out there.
Yeah, and the last one that I did was for the Trevor Project, and it's one that hits home with me a lot and is weirdly applicable to, to the writing right now.
Yeah.
But I really do love it, and it feels like you're doing something, you're just trying. You're trying to make the world a little bit better, and you are doing amazing things. And
Thank you.
I do hope that you feel really proud of yourself because it's remarkable.
You're gonna make me cry. It is sometimes very difficult because I, I'm working from home now because I was laid off back in uh, April, at the end of April. And I'm still working like a 16-hour day, but sometimes because I'm at home and I'm doing something that I wanted to do, sometimes it feels like I'm not, because it's also not bringing in what I was making at my previous job. And so money is tight and it's a struggle. And sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, for my
Yep.
family. And
You're speaking to me. I'm an indie author. I am not making anything. I'm just trying.
yeah.
And you keep chugging and hoping that it's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you definitely picked the right community because this indie author community is so insanely supportive.
Yeah.
And I know I felt it, and I hope that you have too.
So far, it's been really amazing. So far, how supportive, especially like getting to meet Lauren, and which was a happenstance thing. And then with talking with her, she's kind of what started the podcast. Is, when I was talking with her, I had the inspiration to do it, and kind of told her about it, and she was like, you have to do it. And she's like, I'll put it out there to people and stuff. And so she really helped me kind of get the word out about doing this, to help everybody. And so she was a huge inspiration in getting started with doing the interviews and helping to promote the indie authors and just kind of going down that road. And it has been a really amazing experience, and it's been really fun, but it is not easy. I am lucky to have a husband who's supportive and is you know, understanding when I have my days where I break down and cry, going, what am I doing? Why are we going through this? You know, but you know, I have put out applications and I have done things in that, but with the economic climate right now, what I was doing was buying furniture from overseas, and people are not importing things right now. And so, and jobs have a hard time understanding that skills can translate into other things. So
Yeah, yeah.
it can just, so when, you know, we weren't hearing back, or we were like, you know, getting the "we'll keep you in mind" messages, it just became, we need to just put everything that we have into this business. And so, one thing that we've started doing, is I have a couple of friends who've also recently lost their jobs. Seems to be happening left and right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've done is we've signed up for multiple events. And so I run one event and then I pay them to run another event. And it's by no means enough to pay their bills or can be considered a full-time job, but it does help make sure they have food. It helps make sure that they have, you know, gas to put in their car, you know, and gives them a couple $100s a month. Hopefully one day we'll be making enough that I can actually afford to just go ahead and hire them. But right now it's just doing what I can, where I can, and helping out the people that I can, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we're at. You turned the tables on me here. We were interviewing you, and
Well, it's important. You are an amazing human being, and your love for the community is inspiring in itself. And I'm going to be watching, you know? I'm glad that you
I
brought me
can't
on. I'm
feel like you
grateful.
right now.
But it's true. I'm very grateful to have been interviewed by you for this, because it's good. You know,
Thank you.
you you want to be in the good, and when you find good people, that's you can't ask for more.
I'm gonna have to actually go now. I'm gonna cry. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. And we do need to cut it short because I would like to spend some time with my husband. And I do look forward to hearing more about what you're doing and where you're going, and because you do have really interesting concepts and a really interesting take on the dark romance. And I really like how you included the healthier aspects into it as well, instead of just allowing it to be, well, it's dark, so we're gonna see what we can get away with. But you know, your characters really held each other and themselves accountable for, you know, we're horrible human beings, but there's a limit.
But only so far, okay?
Right. So some of the most interesting morally gray characters you'll ever read in Grudges and Revenge. It's definitely worth checking out. Again, Amazon, KU, or Barnes and Noble. It is definitely worth it. So check it out. And I am sure we will be hearing more from Gray Spice, and I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, love.
You too.
Bye.